Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Andy, long time. It's been a while. We put out a podcast last week, but we had pre-recorded it. Really well received.
It's funny, we didn't do it live. It was just kind of like, and you know what? I guess I'm not shitting on you. I'm shitting on me for this because, like, when you first said it, I'm just like, yeah, like it's just like a whatever. But then when we did it, I had fun. Like I enjoyed doing that podcast, and it was well received, and it was funny. Some of the feedback we got from, people who legitimately do this sort of stuff for very much a living. Like, I love that. My favorite comment was Spanky, just like, some sharp is going to infiltrate your $1 million bettors club. I'm like, that's a good move. That's a good move. Like by them. Like
I wouldn't mind it. Yeah. You get pipeline to that info. Let's do it. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. We got it down somewhere else. But yeah, no, that was cool that was well received. A lot of fun doing that podcast. I had a lot of fun skiing. Happy to be home. It is full on spring here in Southern California. It's starting to get real nice. I think we've seen the end of winter here, albeit winter. So, excited to talk a little grab bag today, as we are wont to do in the doldrums of the NFL offseason. Sometimes we will not necessarily put together a hardcore topic, but rather just kind of comment on the things that are happening in the world. And today is a good day to do that because some things happened. And I am talking obviously of the Calvin Ridley incident, where he...
Did you see Pete added him to the tennis chat?
I did see that. Yeah. He should probably leave. I would leave if I was him. I wouldn't stick around for that. Although he could use some winners at this point.
To be fair, he is allowed to bet tennis.
Yeah, absolutely is allowed to bet tennis. In fact, if he had just been sticking to tennis betting, none of this would happen.
And it was nice. I posted that tweet and appreciate everybody who answered, especially Ben Brown over at PFF. He had a pretty good answer with. I knew like somebody had already gone and like looked into the NFL bylaws, so I didn't want to do it myself. So it was nice to like they are absolutely allowed to bet on sports. You just can't bet on the NFL, which I guess makes sense. Like, let's not get too squirrely and be like, as long as you're not betting on your team or if you're on the bye week, like I'm fine with him just drawing a line like, hey, you're playing in this league. It looks bad. Let's not do that. Go bet on golf, buddy.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different angles that we could cover here, obviously. There are aspects of this and we don't know anything. Don't get me wrong. We heard about this. How long ago before it happened did we hear about this? You remember?
Yeah, like a month. It was at least a month ago. There was a rumbling of this, and it was from an unconfirmed source. But it's like it kind of made sense with the absence, and I don't know that could have been completely unrelated.
Yeah, it's and by his case and by the NFL's. The way that they're posturing all this, the way that they're putting information out there, it was unrelated because this was months after he had taken the absence from the team that this occurred. Apparently, over 5 days. It was the only time he ever bet in his life, and he happened to bet on the NFL, and it happened to bet on Falcons. But there's and again, let me kind of qualify a lot of what we're going to talk about here. We hear rumors about athletes and about stars. Famous, rich, wealthy people. We hear rumors all the time about who's into sports betting. Nothing would surprise me. Had never heard any rumors that Calvin Ridley was on the take for that. Was Tim Donaghy out there? Like actually trying to influence games. Never heard anything about that. No. In fact, I've never heard any NFL player doing that. And honestly, we never will because it is fucking stupid. You're making way more money playing football than you could ever do by manipulating any market. Where fixing is a problem in gambling is lower level, you name it. You know,
Yeah, it's just like you don't see when the tennis integrity unit, if anybody, and I know a lot of you listeners and watchers do bet a lot of tennis and understand the workings of the various tennis organizations out there, but the tennis integrity unit is kind of tied in with all the tennis organizations. Anytime they put anything out, it's not like, oh, somebody threw the match in the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. No, it's somebody threw a match.
That would never happen.
Yeah, it's somebody threw a match. And we don't know that for sure, but it's like, hey, guess what? This challenger in Italy, and by challenger, I mean like minor league tennis. This challenger in Italy usually gets, like $2,000 on a money line from the entire world. Like this is such a low level market. And then suddenly there's like massive swings of money coming in from like one country, and it's all on one guy, and then suddenly wins. Like that sort of stuff raises red flags, and that shit happens. I mean, ITF and challenge, maybe even lower than challenge, like ITF for sure.
You can make more dumping a second set of a challenger tennis match than you can make from winning that tournament. And that is why it's a problem, where the financial incentives are stacked of, it actually makes sense for me. And by the way, I may be betting a bunch of Italian soccer. Now I'm at this Italian challenger. I have a big fucking debt that I can't pay. You want me to dump which set, the first or the second? I'll do both. Like that sort of stuff happens a lot in tennis. Not a lot.
Oh yeah, like
enough that
there
it's
is
a problem.
I can't remember the article, but there was a story of a guy who said, like, he was a low-seeded tennis player in a tournament, and he was the kind of guy who was grinding his way through it, and he was able to find like a cheap flight out of there that he booked ahead of time, and he did too good. Where he said, like, but like the change fee for his flight was more than he would win if he advanced one more round. He's like, I don't know what to do here. It's you just withdraw because you'd lose like $60 by actually winning a tennis match. It's pretty wild. It's wild at the lower levels.
Yeah,
that's why that or Mexican baseball,
of course,
low level soccer leagues. Like you hear about fixed stuff, but like and even the NFL players who make the least amount of money, like that, it would take so much. Yeah, because the risk reward is high. I mean, he just boneheaded it.
Yeah, of course. And it was absolutely ridiculous and stupid. And I forget, somebody had a comment. It might have been Pat Parada, who was a former, bookmaking guy, who was basically like, if I saw this action come through, I'm immediately canceling that. And I'm calling him and being like, hey, we're not taking your bets on the league you play on. And everybody walks away from this. There's no headline breaking case here. And a couple of things, so many thoughts about this. It's tough to really keep my head in the straight line here, but it sucks that this happened. It was going to eventually, there was no doubt it was going to happen, but it sucks that it did, because there's a lot of people that aren't interested in gambling taking over the big the share. It's taking up a tiny sliver of the media landscape in the NFL, and you can already feel people are like, no, they're pushing this back. Like they'd love to latch on to some to some incident like this and be like, see, gambling's evil, it shouldn't be allowed, let's ban it, blah blah blah. Like there's a lot of people like that who
I got a DM request from Al Leiter today.
Did you?
Yeah,
yes, he wants.
He's like, I was right. I'm finally right. Here's a hypothetical.
Told you, Andy. You laughed when I was in front of Congress and said it.
And I mean, you hear stories about guys back in the day, and a lot of them were smart enough not to bet on NFL. But like, how many people in the NFL? Let's just call it the Big Four leagues. I have no idea. I don't have a read on like the state of the average hockey player, but like I know the NBA, I feel like might be the highest of the four. But how many of the Big Four leagues do you think a percentage are betting on like other sports right now?
20% is a fair guess. What do you think?
That seems fair. Like I just think there are some people, like older guys, I bet, who had just done it forever, had been betting through a country club bookie where they golf in the off season forever, and they didn't have to wait for this.
This is the perfect pivot. We know people who are advantaged players who would look at an athlete that is betting on the NFL that's not an NFL player. A baseball player, a basketball player, you name it. If that player is betting on the NFL, they've lost money over their lifetimes. that bookie knows they have a high value client. That's the whales we were talking about trying to capture in the high roller betting club, right? And the Spankies of the world, not Spanky who does this, but he commented and said it. The sharp advantage players will infiltrate that guy's account, and they will find a way to be like, hey man, like your credit limit at this book is $250K. Let us bet some winners into there. And I
hate how Patrick won't name names here.
He won't name names. No, it could be anyone. And yeah, I heard there was a very famous basketball player back in the day who liked to bet as well. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him. His initials, it was M. Jordan. Oh, that's way too specific. Michael J. But yeah, no, there is no doubt that there are. If you're a professional athlete, you are competitive as shit. If you are in the off season and you're not, getting your competitive fix by doing something, be it playing games or betting on whatever, playing video games, like these guys are competitive monsters that are running nonstop trying to scratch that itch. There definitely are a huge.
Are they allowed to do DFS?
No,
I have so many questions about, like, you hear about like NFL players, and even they have it. It's a fun like media thing when some NFL player goes on some stupid morning show and be like, yeah, I drafted myself in my fantasy league. I guess that's such a low, that they're not going to like tank to lose somebody else's fantasy matchup or something. That's just such a low risk thing, but it's close enough where it's like, money's exchange on there. But yeah, I get where they're at. I'm fine with the rules the way they are. Yeah. It is, I mean, your biggest point was this was bound to happen. It was just kind of a matter of time before somebody screwed up. And I guess I do want to hear the details of this. Like it'll be funny if he legitimately if we find out he signed up under his name with his home address for like one of the main operators, like, just a FanDuel, DraftKings, like he just signed up and they do their due diligence, but like, this is an NFL player, I think, guys, like, that they know as an operator. I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like anything else as an operator. You hear these casinos where some of the rules of the sports books, especially out in Vegas back in the day, was you put $50K on a, let's say the Knicks tonight, and something comes up and you really don't want that bet anymore. You want to buy out of that, and you're fine with just losing the juice. A lot of those operators are going to tell you to kick rocks if you try to go bet the other side for the same amount if you're playing on an account, because that's just how money gets washed at some places. So like, somebody who needs to do that has to go to a different sports book to do it. They, of course, and the sports book doesn't give a shit. They would love to take that action. They'd be more than happy to just take your juice and run with it. But they know that they could be on the hook and they could lose their license or be, fined, whatever, sanctioned, however you want to say it. So you would think, I still haven't heard the part of the story is like, is it the sports book ratted on him? Because
no, that's what happened.
Okay. That's what the
report is. Yeah.
He was in
Florida.
I haven't got the.
He was in Florida. He was betting through the Hard Rock, and the Hard Rock flagged it, sent it to the Watchdogs Genius, and they said, "Oh no, that's an NFL player betting on the NFL. Here's a gift wrapped case for you, NFL Investigation Committee." And that was it.
You get one.
And so yeah, this was specifically the sportsbook themselves, identified this and turned them in.
It's actually very difficult to sports bet in Florida.
It is. It's very tough.
It's not like he was in Iowa or anywhere else where you can just sit on your phone and sign up. Like Florida actually made it difficult, and then there was a bunch of strife to get that going.
Oh yeah, no, he walks to the counter in Iowa and places betting cash. Nobody knows any different, and he's it's all water under the bridge. The one thing that I will tell you about this, and we may never get to the bottom of this, but my goodness, like there's some spidey sense going on with this story where it's like, this was awfully convenient for this to be the big gambling scandal for the NFL. You know what I mean? Like this was convenient. Like, oh, he did bet on the NFL, but it was just in some parlays and it wasn't very much money. And he bet on his team. And we're going to hit him with the absolute most severe penalty you could imagine. And it'll teach everyone a lesson. But the integrity of the game was not ever in question. because it was a guy on the non. He wasn't even with the team, do you know what I mean? Like there's a little bit. This is a little convenient.
Are you saying Roger Goodell consulted with Hall of Fame wide receiver Chris Carter on this? And CC says to Roger, Raj, you need a fall guy.
You need a fall guy.
God, that was such a good interview.
You need a fall guy. It does feel like that to a degree, though, because if this was like a full-on blow up, like he was betting with the legal bookie, he's been betting on his games for several seasons, and the Falcons fans now are losing, or any bettor who's lost bets on the Falcons, which is everyone who's ever bet on the NFL, is like, it was all fixed. Is all they got what they needed, which was a mini scandal that they could be real tough about, and now. But it doesn't really question the integrity of the game. Like, doesn't that feel a little too cute?
Yeah, but it also just feels like, I mean, it's the whole, what is it, malice versus ineptitude kind of thing that we go over many times on this podcast. Like, it does feel like just a younger player just screwing up. Like, it felt like, you said this was bound to happen. I think you're right. Again, it was bound to happen. And I think if you really took a couple months back and you said, what's more likely, something like this, or we find out some star player who's been in the league for 15 years has been betting like $200K a week for like 16 years, and is massively in debt and has maybe been betting against his team, the real whatever you want to call it,
or like some recent major winner in the golf circuit is like seven figures to the bad, which
brings up, and again the MMA crowd, which I'm not like disparaging them. I love a lot of those guys, but a couple people brought this up, like I think in boxing too, but MMA, those guys will come out and say, "Hey, I bet on myself." Dana, and again, it's a separate league. They can make their own rules, and taking a fall, I guess, could be, if somebody came over the top and paid you triple what you bet, I guess you could take a fall, but. I guess Dana's just not too worried about it. It is struck me as weird, and I like that. You're betting on yourself. I like that. Like, that's fine, but it has always come across as weird. But what if you're betting on yourself as a massive favorite, and you lose? That just kind of strikes me as, well, you bet 20K on yourself as a massive favorite to win like 6,000 or something, and then somebody gives you, 100K on the back end to drop it or something. Maybe you're at the back end of your career. That's where, again, it's an individual sport. That would worry me a lot more than an NFL. Like, what would it take for an NFL player at wide receiver to throw a game? Like,
it's not easy. Number one, if you're a wide receiver, there's very few wide receivers who I can point to and say they did something that hands down cost that team to lose that game. Like, that's not easy. There's and oh, by the way, if you're going to try to fix an NFL game, you're going right to the refs.
God damn it. You really
I was right to the refs.
I was going to say, if it gun to your head, like the mafia is saying you have to get this game fixed, like, who are you going? It's the ref immediately. Like, you're threatening the ref.
Yeah,
I think those refs would be hard to buy off. Like, you definitely. I was just about to say you definitely have to kidnap his family.
You're compromising them in some way.
We don't need to plan this.
No, we're not. Either through violence or financial means, you are compromising a referee if you're trying to get a fix, and you're not paying a player. Like, that's not happening. Anyway, let's talk about where Ridley went wrong, and how stupid this was. Let's talk about how stupid this was. Okay, players are people too. They should be allowed to have fun however they want in their free time. He was away from the team. I'm not really gonna shame him for the act of betting, but betting on the NFL was quite stupid, because this is not a surprise. Even the fact that he shouldn't be betting on your team or your sport is not a surprise, and there's good reasons why, and we'll get to those in a second. But even in the explanation, he couldn't have been like, "Oh yeah, well, my manager was using my phone and he bet these games, not me, but he logged into my account because Google auto logs you in, and I didn't know." Or the app doesn't have it's not taking a picture of your face when you log in and verifying that you are the one that bet it. It's just his account made some bets and they were on football. Like wasn't there some plausible deniability here?
You don't think Bezos and all the other guys and I almost called him Tim Apple.
Tim Cook, the Apple guy.
Tim Cook and Bezos and Zuckerberg. You don't think they're taking pictures of your face? I've got a beach to sell you. Those guys are into your shit. It's like it made me think of I had a friend back in the day who got the thing in his car that you have to blow in to start it after he got in a little trouble. And that for sure takes a picture of your face. Because if you have somebody else trying to start your car, they get awful mad at you and add extra time to it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like I would have had a better
it would have like number one, if you were gonna do it and try to get away with it, it's pretty easy to have someone else make the bets for you. If you were gonna do it and got caught, it's pretty easy to pretend like you didn't actually do it. Right? Like these aren't
if I did it.
If I bet the $1,500, but I didn't.
No, I think you're right. You just I hope he doesn't hear this because that's gonna seem like a really good idea after like sitting out next year. Like, oh, I should have just said somebody else.
Should just said somebody else did. Yeah, that would have saved me $11 million.
I don't know if the NFL would give it a shit. They might have just told him to kick rocks. It's your account anyway. But you can't prove that, so you're still in trouble. But tweeting through it probably wasn't the best.
No, that was not the best. I agree. And here's why there were some hot takes afterwards, like, oh, you should be allowed to bet on yourself. You should be allowed to bet on your own team, blah, blah, blah. This is why that is. You know why this is fraught. And this has been well covered in the Pete Rose debacle. Do you want to go over why it's not acceptable to bet on yourself or your own team? And if you are, a degenerate gambler?
Because of the Pete Rose situation?
Not just because of the Pete Rose situation, but because some days you're going to decide not to bet on your own team. And that might as well be giving a signal to whoever is running your account that is the same as,
I don't think we're winning today.
I don't think we're winning today. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Is like you can bet on yourself, but you better do it every single time, because the time you don't, it's like that sends a pretty clear signal that something is up. And that was what was always fraught. Even if I don't believe the Pete Rose stuff. I think he was lying credulously. But I think realistically, even if you accept his truth at face value, it was a question, because it's like he didn't bet on his team every day. And some days when he didn't, that was sending a message to the bookmakers who he was working with that something wasn't right or something wasn't good.
The starter might not have what we thought he had.
Have the goods.
And I also wonder too is and he was a player manager for part of that, I believe. So, when you have the control over managerial decisions, which I'm 90% sure he was player manager for part of the betting too, like it makes you wonder as far as like, I'm very desperate to win this bet. Are you making, if you think about some of the players on that team and the fact that their careers hinged on some of the success they had, are you making the best decision for the team, or are you making a desperate decision to just a wild stab at trying to come back in this game because you really, really laid the points?
Yeah.
Or, in baseball, laid the heavy favor.
Laid the juice. Yeah. No, there are lots more reasons and examples, but I am perfectly fine with a bottom line across the board, all sports rule that if you're an athlete competing in that sport or involved in that sport from any type of you're getting paid from front office, coaching staff, you're the freaking, equipment manager, you shouldn't be betting on that sport. I'm fine with that. That should be one of the things you give up, for being part of that sport. That's fine. The rest of the sports you want to play, that's, I don't have an issue with that. You should be a human. You should be allowed to do whatever you want with your gobs of money. But I can see why people are anti it, because you can get yourself into trouble. Like if you're losing a shitload of money on college football and you owe someone more than your next NFL game check is going to cover, the idea that you then are in a position where you can be leveraged to influence the game in favor of the guy who has the keys to the kingdom, that's a problem. There's realistic conflict of interest there. that you're putting yourself in a difficult situation.
Or you're forced to join the Saudi Football League to pay off some debt because you're that's not really a thing. God, that was such a it's wild how like do you remember the Super League in soccer for like 3 days or whatever it was?
Yeah,
Like
I had a good run.
I think the Saudi League still might have legs. That still might be something that happens, but it's wild. And again, it's just like everything else in the world. And I hate to be like a super downer, but even like really, really tragic events now, it used to be like when we were younger, like a tragic event in the world in the news. That was like, it hung with you. Now it's like people forget about it the next day. Shit, just the news cycle's too fast with the internet now. Like nothing hangs around. You forget all about stuff in like 3 days. Like, oh yeah, there was a massive tragedy in the news. Yeah, but that was like months ago. No, it was Thursday, buddy. Like just there's been too many new memes since then to fill your fucking brain full. But
yeah,
I digress. We'll
I guess last question for you on this, and then we'll move topics. Do you think the punishment was fair? 1 year for making if we accept the facts as reported that he was betting for 5 days and it was $1,500 worth and it was parlays when he was away from the team. Like, is this punishable offense worth a year suspension and costing him $11 million, realistically just derailing his career?
Somebody did mention this in one of my comments when I did ask like about is he allowed to bet other sports and shit like that. He said that like they do a lot of education around this. It's not like they mentioned it on day one and hey, don't do that. But like he said, even in the locker rooms, it's there's like signs up, like the OSHA signs you see at workplaces telling you to work, right to work state. Like they said, there's literature telling them like this is a big problem, don't do it. And it's repeatedly hammered into their heads that like this is very punishable. So I think you do have to separate the amount away. Like it doesn't matter if you bet $25. I think like separating the amount out, that shouldn't matter. Like if they say it's like, hey, this is a zero tolerance, not a drop kind of thing, then they probably had to stick their guns. And I really do have a problem with most leagues' punishment systems, like just following some of the punishments I see in the NHL. And again, I don't follow the NHL that closely, but it seems like they have like a spinning wheel at the office that they just spin for punishments.
Well, for behavioral stuff, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and the NFL, especially for behavioral stuff, the NFL has zero standardization, like just between the Zeke stuff and other people who've had problems off the field, and then the Ray Rice and finding out they probably knew about that Ray Rice video anyway, and like, oh hey, guess what? You guys saw the video? Oh yeah, no, we're even more mad now. Like the NFL doesn't have a great track record for being super consistent or prudent with their punishments. Goodell doesn't unit shame. That's good. I think if you said zero tolerance and it's a year, I think it's like the drug policy. Like if you get popped for drugs, you gotta sit out, which hopefully drug policies go away.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it did feel severe considering, but
honestly, I think in general, I think the punishment is too severe. But I'm saying, like, if that's what they set out there and told them, this is the punishment you're going to get, then it is, yeah.
Okay, so the question then is, does this stop the next player from betting on the NFL on the basis of how severe the punishment was? If you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, I was recreationally betting and I didn't get caught, I'm lucky, I'm never betting on the NFL again, right?
So I think it's like it's not even a Pareto thing. It's because it's certainly not. It's more like 95-5. Like again, going back to the drug stuff. Like when people were getting popped, think back like in the Ricky Williams days. Mm-hmm. Like there were still people who were just like, I'm gonna try to get away with it because I like it. Like, and that's where it might be good to identify those people, because if they have, let's say this $10 million a year contract and they are putting it at risk over making some fucking same game parlays, on the NFL for a few grand a week, like that might be a good person to maybe not punish as much, but get some help, because their risk, the fact that they're risking that much just to gamble makes you kind of worry about the fact that they might just like to gamble a little too much. And the same thing, like with I don't think anyone needs to go to rehab for smoking dope. Like that's just silly, obviously back in the day. But like, any of these, there have been NFL stars who have gotten popped for opiates or have had some problems with painkiller addictions. Like, you drug test them and punish them, but it's still, they're an employee, and it's a weird situation because it's a league and a players union, but getting them help would be good too if you have some guys. Sure. But I do think like it's probably a deterrent enough, but there's still going to be edge cases of people like, I think the people who want to bet will be smarter about it now and just not get caught. And then the few dumbasses who do get caught from here on out really probably just deserve it, because boy, like now you know what not to do. Yeah. You know what the punishment is. There's other ways to go here.
Okay. So in the end, it sounds like we kind of are on the same page that this incident will presumably help protect the integrity of the game in the way they handle it. Right. And in fact, they could probably hold this up as evidence of like, look how good the system is. We've talked about this specifically on this podcast before. I know we have, where it was literally like, it obviously makes incredible sense for sports leagues and sports books to be willing partners, because anyone on the bookmaker side is going to have much more access to information about integrity problems than anyone on the league side. And if you are collaborating, like you're going to be able to actually ensure the integrity of the league. Now, it doesn't make it like in the sense in the context of the tennis integrity unit, in the context of like say doping enforcement in cycling and even steroids in baseball, like going after the players and really kind of making your dirty laundry public, like it has a negative feedback to it, because it's like, hey, we're doing something about this problem. Well, people now notice and talk about you have a problem, right? And I think the tennis integrity unit was a great example where they didn't necessarily handle it well, and it kind of made people just assume that there was widespread fixing. It gives people in the gambling community, the latitude to just claim fixing is happening all the time, which is absolutely insane, especially at the high levels. But they're doing it. And similarly, like, you want to fix the doping problem in cycling. You can't do it behind closed doors. You got to find some way to do it. But the problem is you open that, peel that Band-Aid off, and now all of a sudden everybody's like, well, everybody's doping.
Yeah.
It's a weird double-edged sword. It's funny.
That was the thing. Like everyone's like, oh no, Lance Armstrong was like cheating. And then you find out like, no, he was just leveling the field. Like every one of those guys was cheating. Like the best. Yeah, it was like he was the best at cheating.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so wild with those, like listening to the stories of shit. The cycling dopers, what they do, like the blood doping stuff.
Yeah.
I guess you want to be the best, you got to do a lot, but Christ.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, I think from a PR standpoint, if the NFL had like legitimately like scripted this to be like, this is probably the best case scenario for them to be like, see, this is why we need good partnerships with the sports books. They find it right. Yeah, that's a great point. And in fact, if you have a problem gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER, please. I'm sure there are some problem gamblers who listen.
We don't mention that enough.
We'll do a whole episode dedicated to that at some point for sure this offseason. But without question, I think you could hold this up if you're the NFL and be like, the system is working perfectly. A player made a random bet. It was not for very much. We found out about it and we did something. Right. And I would actually caution anyone who thinks that you could get around this just by having a proxy. That's probably not true, because I think if you are capturing whales in the sports betting space and a proxy comes to you and is betting very large amounts of money, it is very important that you figure out where that's coming from.
You do a little know your customer, and you find out he was a bouncer for 20 years. Now he's working security for a running back in the NFL. Like,
yes, exactly.
2 + 2.
Exactly. Like, where did this come from? Is this black market money? And I think and the idea that the sports books will consistently turn over those customers to the NFL is not 100%. Like, they're going to take your money for a while. But if they need to curry favor with the NFL for whatever reason, now they have a chip. because they know who you are. Do you agree with what I'm saying here?
Let's enable the troublemakers now.
Okay.
Because you're right. Like, and truthfully, like, if somebody wants to bet the amounts that Calvin Ridley was betting, a proxy or betting through an agent is going to work on 100%. He should. That was his answer. Like, bet through a proxy, and you would have been just fine. But like, let's say there's somebody that does want to bet big, and they're in the NFL, and they want to bet on let's enable this person, because this is just a fun exercise. How would you're hired as a consultant for, star running back X on team that we won't name, and he wants to be getting down, 20 a game on the NFL. And he says, I won't bet my games because I'm a good guy. And that convinces you to be like, I'm going to help him. I'm going to help this guy. What is your advice for telling him how to get that money down without getting in trouble?
You open a paperhead for him. And you book him yourself. That's obviously the answer. Obviously. That's the easiest whale you ever caught. He walked right into your freaking net.
I was hoping you wouldn't get there right away, and then I'd be able to send that. Send him to Doug. Yeah, that's true. But like,
yes.
No, yeah.
Yes.
You book him and you hope he doesn't win week 1.
That's right. That's the part. Yes. You need to be well capitalized enough. If you're not, you talk to someone else in the space who is, and you make that book yourself. And
somebody you get if you have somebody back you, but like truthfully, like that is the answer. But like a lot of it, I think even if you send them to a lot of these agents who book these people who they don't want to give credit to somebody they don't know. They have to know this person, so it's not it is harder for them to to do something via proxy or just via paperhead agent, however you want to say it, if they are betting big amounts. But again, like a lot of these guys, hopefully they just realize, like, if I want to get down on some stupid parlays, I'm just going to, my buddy Frank here is going to bet them for me.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing too. Like, if you win, do you really even give a shit about the money? It's just, I think a lot of it is just like the fun of betting.
You're bored. You're bored. You want to be entertained. I'm sure that's true. And I don't know. Oh man, it's fucking crazy. I think we covered this from pretty much every angle. I had
weird Monday though.
Maybe one. I know. I guess, you know what? Credit again. Like if this was a bigger problem, if this was an actual problem, if there was an integrity issue at play here, like, would we have heard about this on the Monday after the combine? When there's nothing else going on between now and free agency starting? No fucking way. Timing of this is a little convenient also. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too.
They needed to do it before free agency got hot because of Ridley's situation.
Well, and also just the fact, and we see this other times where there's news dumps on days where, leagues, especially the NFL, doesn't want people talking too much about a shitty news dump that they have to do.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, the timing is nice. And the fact that we heard about this a month ago, that this was a possibility from somebody makes you like, they weren't just waiting to gather all the facts. Like, the timing was, that absolutely was calculated. So
yeah, because guess what? If this was an integrity thing, when you release it? This Friday coming up. Because you still accomplished the same goals and information that you needed to, clear your books in the right timing. But then March Madness, the conference
Selection Sunday
Selection Sunday comes, and
the Ivy League tournament just pushes it out of our realm.
Completely. Like, this was probably the day that they could have released it where they got the most visibility on it, honestly, in the time frame that we're talking about. I don't know. I'm watching this space. Watching it carefully.
Yeah, it was a weird day.
Yeah. All right.
Everybody's watching the Furman game but me. I feel a little FOMO there.
Oh, sorry, man.
Oh, Dan just turned it to the Furman game. I think Dan's watching basketball.
He's giving you the Furman side second screen. I like it.
Furman's kind of pissing it away. Chattanooga's a really good team. What are you going to do?
Nuga's a truck.
Nuga is an absolute truck.
All right. How are your conference tournament bets going?
Okay. Can't seem to get a long shot very deep. And some of these, I don't know if we've had a year where there's just so much chalk that's like I can't make a case for anyone. Like South
like
Dakota
the Murray States, South Dakota States.
In Murray State, I guess less so, and they did win, but like even at their price, they weren't huge chalk, but it's like fuck, they should probably be 200. And South Dakota State, it's like man, hey, guess what? They're 18-0 in conference, and I guess Oral Roberts was good last year, and they still have their star, but boy, it's you know how far it is from the Brookings campus down to the Pentagon or the Denny Sanford or whatever. I mean, it's right down the road. They're practically playing at home. They have good fans. Like this is an SDSU team that's probably going to truck in the next game. They're up by like 30 now. Gonzaga only has to play 2 games. Vermont has to play 3, but Dan just pointed out Vermont is an AE wagon. Vermont was minus 700 before their tournament started. And It's not even like, Vermont's like a giant killer. They might be an 11 seed that takes someone down. No, the rest of their conference just sucks donkey balls. Like there's nobody else that's like even very good at all. They're like 500.
Feel that New Hampshire shade. Ooh.
Oh, I know. I made a pick. I said I'd make a pick in every one. So I took Hartford 95-1.
Are they already out?
Because there was a situation where they would play the first 2 games at home, and they needed 2 upsets, and the first upset came through, and the other upset was a 7-2, and that went to overtime. I almost got it. So Hartford's probably dead. They probably lose in Baltimore, but it was fun. And it doesn't matter how good Vermont is. You can hedge a 95-1 in the finals.
Dude, Vermont is like they would have been a legitimate bubble team if they lose this somehow. They're very no one else is even away. Like they're even really, close. Really good. Okay.
And that's another thing that stinks about this year's tournament.
Yeah.
They're in the single bid conferences. Murray State could have lost and still got in.
Yeah. Loyola Chicago.
That's it. No.
Deserved it. They deserved it if they lost, I thought.
Their rankings and who they beat, and just like if you go look at everything, Nat Torvik, everybody, they weren't there. Like they weren't they weren't like 10 spots out, but they were like in that firmly in the first 4 out if they didn't win their tournament. So naturally I bet against them.
Bart's got South Dakota State 1.6 wins over the bubble. He's got Wyoming 2.3 wins over the bubble. Wow, Jesus, I had no idea.
Wyoming for sure. The Mountain West is getting 4.
Oh yeah, wow, they sure shit are.
That's a
Colorado State, Utah State, Fresno, and Wyoming are all going. Wow,
fun leagues that have not even started yet.
Oh, Boise State. I didn't even say there might be 5 worthy there. San Diego State. Mountain West is nasty. What?
Oh,
how is this so good?
They're going 4 deep, and honestly, like there's the 5 and 6 teams could make a run and get through. Like there's some goofiness that we could have. Like I think it would push a bubble team out, obviously, but the bubble's super weak, so I don't mind like a fun team getting in. That's going to be a good one. The Mountain West is super fun.
What's your general ranking of this year's potential March Madness field? If you go the last 20 years, let's do in the Coach K era. In the Coach K era, where is this on the spectrum of potential March Madness brackets?
I mean, it depends what you like. Do you want some really high-end teams seeing some really, really high-end ball, or do you want chaos?
Either one is entertaining. That's not.
There's one like UCLA won like 15 years ago. I can't even remember when it was. It was the chalkiest tournament, and it was just zero fun whatsoever.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, okay. If you want me to,
that's the worst.
Yeah.
So I mean, just Gonzaga trying to get over that hump. The fact that Arizona has turned out to be so good, that's a fun team. The three WCC teams, like I think the Dons and the Gales are going to be fun teams that make it in. All the Mountain West teams, like they all have good wins over each other, but it's we'll see how that matches up. Sometimes these teams end up with just the worst matchup. Like, not to pick on the Longhorns like I always do, but like that Abilene Christian matchup stunk like for certain teams. Sometimes you go in as a good team and you just end up against the wrong matchup as far as it goes.
Yeah,
and it's that is the fun part too. So, and Rob's asking a question here. In the tourney, first round high seed betting, looking for upsets. So this isn't really like a analytical system or anything. I've brought this up a couple times. I literally will bet every single 12, 13, 14, and 15 seed on the money line at the best price I can find. And if I don't end up in the black on Thursday, I'll do the same thing on Friday for twice as much money. And again, the only year that didn't, like, that fun, silly, hoping for chaos thing didn't work out was, I think, that UCLA year where it just got smoked. But you can do the 12 seed money or the 12 seed round robin. That's a fun one too, because the 12 seeds are always live. And even if you're just getting like even money or plus 150, you round robin those and you get 3 out of 4 and it pays probably 8-1 on what you put out there. So there's some fun to be had. As far as this year's field, I'm pretty pumped, I guess.
Okay. So like 75th percentile, 80th percentile?
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited for the usual Big Ten sends 8 or 9 teams, ends up with 1 in the Sweet 16 kind of thing. I'm excited.
Feels very live this year, honestly.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Gonzaga's
bracket looks like.
What their region looks like. Like, that was a low-key, sneaky, good region last year. Like, that USC team was tough, and obviously UCLA turned out to be crazy tough. But that was a really fun one. I'm glad I don't really have any futures for the most part.
Okay, if you were taking one this moment, who are you taking? Taking a long shot like your Jackrabbits? They're the trendy 12 this year that takes down the 5 and makes it to the Sweet 16.
See, and that I think I want to look for more markets like that.
Yeah.
Because those are starting to exist, and we'll dog on some of these books for having some stupid props and things like that. But there's gonna be, and you can manufacture these synthetically. You're not going to get the same price based on what happens in a different game that's out of your control. But I'm sure there's markets on team to reach the second weekend. And if there's not, I'm going to yell at somebody to make those, because those aren't that hard to price out. We'll talk to Lindy. He should make those if those don't exist.
Nice.
Because what's the value in taking South Dakota State to win it all? They're not going to win it all.
Yeah, nothing.
They're just it's not a non-zero chance, but it's really close to zero. So it's fun, but like taking a 12 seed to win their first 2 games, like, hey, this team's going to be on the second weekend. That's a market I'd love to find on some of these. Can you imagine what Oral Roberts was last year? They were,
yeah.
I mean, they were probably, they were probably a
number
10-1 dog to Ohio State. And then the second game, at least 6-1. So you're talking Florida, 70-1 on that parlay.
Yeah. And I guess, as always, remember, when it comes to betting futures, path is everything.
Path rules everything around me.
Path rules everything around me. That's why I very rarely will get heavily involved in anything college basketball until we see the what the path is. And then
that brings up a great point about futures. Like, one year I made 3 really good futures, and when they got to the end of the year, they had all accumulated not closing line value because it hadn't closed, but whatever you'd call it in a future, and all 3 got in the same region.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna, like, the path at that point? Your path is super fucked for everybody, and it was no fun. Fun for Andy.
The other important thing to remember about futures betting is you want to take a position on a team that their equity is going to improve, regardless, based on other things in the bracket. Right? Like, you take a good team in a weak bracket, expecting that the very challenging brackets, there's going to be more chaos and uncertainty, and some 1 seeds are going to go down elsewhere in the space. And because if you are going to bet on a medium or long shot who is in a difficult bracket, region, whatever, you might as well bet them game by game like an Oral Roberts, because you're going to do better price wise. If they have to do the hard work themselves to get to where you need them to win money. What happened? Did Furman do something insane?
Well, I think we're tied here. I think we might be going to overtime. I think we're going to overtime, guys. Furman. Oh my gosh. The Cherokee Center in
Improbable.
Asheville, North Carolina is alive. I'm not sure if there's any time. Chattanooga Furman. Oh my gosh.
4 seconds left. They got one more shot for Chattanooga.
Oh my gosh. I don't need this in my life. Furman was my future in that one.
Ooh, that's cool. Good job, man. I mean, it's not over yet, obviously.
No, they made it this far though. I'm proud of this. I'm proud of this squad.
Yeah.
No, Mike, but like you bring up a good point too. Like if you are handicapping the entire bracket and you're looking for, why didn't Chattanooga fall up there? You're looking for like, here's some spots where there's some upsets. Like if you think, I identified 2 or 3 spots where these high seeds are really at risk. And even if 1 out of the 3 goes out, like that increases everybody's equity in that side of in that conference, that region.
Yeah.
Like look for who do you think is safe against a first round, against a second round matchup that can gain some equity. And it's funny that the last future I cashed in the big dance, I took after the brackets came out. I bet Virginia the year they won it.
That was absolutely insane.
That was like, you don't look at me. I am 22 years old and I have this much gray hair from that. Like that was the wildest sequence of games. If that would have been a paper ticket, I would have ripped that up so many times.
Yeah,
that whole region was nuts. That was a really fun tournament. That if we can have something like that, I would love that.
Yes, I would too. It would be amazing. I also think in general give me the Bulldogs this year. Gonzaga's doing this.
I hope so.
They're doing this. It's going to be like that Virginia run where Virginia finally got the monkey off their back. This team is way better defensively than last year.
Did Virginia win the year immediately after losing to UMBC?
Yes.
Wow,
they did. What a juxtaposition.
Do you know I passed?
Do you remember that?
I didn't even watch that game. I passed out in my room in Vegas. I passed out in the middle of the afternoon because I'd been up all night, and I woke up and obviously my phone has like ESPN alerts and the TV's going nuts and like, oh wow, like I just remember like you're in that haze because you're not quite awake. I'm like, were they a 1 seed? Like holy shit! Like they fucked up bad.
That's bad. That's bad.
And then just like the Braves will be, Dan, the Virginia will be champions for 2 years. It's like how Tiger Woods was Masters champ for like 18 months.
God, dude, sports was fucking electric right before the pandemic. We had that Virginia run and Tiger Masters all in the same month.
Oh my God. Yeah, the championship game will be on the Monday of Masters Week this year.
Oh,
I think sometimes that happens. So that is an electric fucking stretch there.
And
I mean, so many golfers are playing so well right now. The Masters is gonna be in fuego.
Best of luck. Yeah, have fun capping that. This real quick note on Path. Another good example that I can give you because the NBA playoffs picture is starting to clear up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The Brooklyn Nets are still broadly considered likely to win the Eastern Conference. They're like 4-1. They're third choice now behind the Bucks and the Sixers, but they're still up there price-wise. Their path and the price you can get betting them series by series, if the kind of, if everything kind of stays the way it is trajectory-wise here, it's still improbable. I'm not on the Nets bandwagon yet by any stretch of the imagination, but you're going to be able to absolutely blow away 4-1 betting them series by series the way that their path is currently lined up. Dan Kelly likes Cam Smith at the Masters. That's a inspired call. The reason I say that, Nets probably the 7th seed, maybe the 8th seed. Okay. Nets in the 2-7 matchup are going to draw Philly or Boston in the 2-7 matchup, where they will be underdogs in that series, as currently we believe things would be. Second series would be against the other of Boston and Philly. They'd be dogs again. And then presumably dogs a third time in the Eastern Conference Finals against the likes of Miami or Milwaukee. So what would the rollover price be if the Nets are plus 120 in all three series, Andy?
Oh, I wasn't listening to the math. I thought you were going to do it
plus
for
120,
me.
plus 120, plus 120. What do you got for a rollover price?
2.2 times 2.2 is,
2.2 cubed.
Yeah, 2.2 cubed. 4 points.
It is 10.6 is the answer, which is plus 960.
Man, I just watched Rain Man yesterday too.
960. So they're going to be about plus 960 for the rollover, and current market price has them 4-1. They're going to have to do it the hard work themselves. They're going to have to eliminate Philly, Boston, and Milwaukee, or Philly, Boston, and Miami. They are not going to get the break of some chaos where the Bulls magically win a series, the Cavs magically win a series, the Raptors magically win a series. Like, that's not happening. They're going to have to do it themselves, and it's going to be miserable, and they're going to be dogs in all three series at this rate. And if ultimately Kyrie gets to play in the home games, maybe that changes. If Ben Simmons comes back and he is out of this world good, like we haven't seen him play in a long time, then all this changes. But I don't think realistically you can count on Simmons being much of a factor in a series against Philly. And I don't think you can expect Kyrie to be a factor in Brooklyn.
This guy gets it. Dan Kelly gets it. Like, I'm still old school enough I will only use my DVR. I still have DirecTV out on the farm. I will only use my DVR on TCM though, because I'm not about that fast forwarding through commercial shit. Like
Turner classic movies.
That just breaks. That ruins the whole experience. Like, I want Ben Mankiewicz to come introduce the movie and talk about, the cinematographer and where he came from after that, and then we watch Rain Man, and then he talks a little more. And that's how I want my movies. Like, Dan gets it. I'm way off topic, but I'm sorry. I felt bad because I couldn't do the math, and I legitimately watched that one last night.
I only had one other thing I want to talk about today. It's not Indian Wells. I'll cover Indian Wells with Gil tomorrow or Wednesday. I think we're doing a pod with him and Dan Weston. And I don't have thoughts on Indian Wells until we see the draw anyway, because path matters, guys. Coming full circle there. But the Coach K finale curtain call for Coach K on Saturday was a wild range of emotions. Obviously, I was a Duke guy, but I was not a Cameron Crazy. In fact, I had a lot of animosity with the Cameron Crazies when I went to school because they tended to be a very different type of person than me in terms of what they liked to spend their social time doing. And so we didn't necessarily get along a lot. And in fact, the other funny thing to know about Cameron Crazy is they elected to sleep in the tents, even though you could walk up to most Duke games as a student with a student ID and walk in for free. They elected to sleep in the tents out in Krzyzewskiville because they wanted to be on the TV side so that they could get on TV with their costumes and their histrionics. So there was definitely, like, I would not put myself in the even 90th percentile even the 10th percentile of people who went to Duke and cared about Duke basketball. All that said, it was very, very cool to see all of the players who played throughout the years all show up for this one event. Like, that was just a nostalgia time bomb, regardless if you just cared about college basketball at all. Like, it was cool to see all of those absolute, like, legendary players all in the same place, all kind of like pulling for the same thing. Like, that was cool. And I thought that in general, the grave dancing, that the people who were excited about Duke losing that game was like, I felt sad for them, honestly, because it was like, this was a very cool thing to see if you like college basketball, I thought. And Coach K, gave 42 years of his life to the Duke program. The Duke brand as it is, and the way college basketball works, the way college admissions works, like, they compete with the Ivy League universities for high quality candidates to go to school there, in large part because of the Duke basketball program. In my opinion, I think Coach K is probably responsible for pulling Duke into that conversation among the best universities because of what he did for Duke basketball. And that's impressive to me. And the fact that he coached one place for 42 years and won 5 national titles and is the all-time winningest coach, both in the regular season and the tournament, it's incredibly impressive. And I don't know how you see greatness and kind of celebrate it not full, ending in a win. All that said, win or lose, I didn't really care as much as I thought that was pretty cool to see all those players. What were some of your takeaways? Were you celebrating the UNC win, Andy? You on the other side of this one? Am I on the wrong side of history? I'm in the 2% that care about.
I mean, yeah, you went to Duke. It's not your fault. Like, I get it, and he is an important part of basketball history. But it's been like for me, I think the shine wore off like 5 years ago, and it's like I think this guy is just here as a recruiting tool. Like, is he really even coaching that much anymore? Like, he's great for bringing in the top recruits, because what are you going to say? And Coach K comes sit in your living room. Like, yeah, that's a big deal. This guy's a living legend, but like, I think he overstayed it a bit. And it would have been a little more of a graceful exit 5 years ago. Like, I didn't want to be the guy just like, yeah, fuck UK, you got your shit kicked in by UNC. There was plenty. I didn't need to. There was plenty of that to go around. And I do hate a goodbye tour. But for me, again, it's one of those things where I don't know like what went on behind the scenes. Maybe this was, maybe the university pushed this more than he did. It might not have been just, Krzyzewski saying, I'm doing this riding into the sunset tour and we're gonna make a big to-do about it. It could have been the league or the university, or who knows, but like, yeah, he wasn't a good in-game coach for a while here, and it'll be interesting to see how his successor here does with what is an absolute blue blood, and see if it continues, because I think it would be bad. It would be bad for basketball in general if Duke fell into obscurity. Like, you don't want good basketball schools to be bad. It's not fun when like good blue bloods like this for the longest time are not good. Like the 1 year Kentucky just didn't put together the right one and dones and sucked. It's like, well, this is, it's not fun when someone beats Kentucky now. Like, you want that, even if it's a likable coach and a likable team, like when you go beat Kentucky or Duke, or it's hard to hate Nova. Like, who can hate you, right? But like a good blue-blooded team, and I'm gonna say blue blood too many times here, but as a lower to mid-tier team in their conference, or somebody in preseason, whatever, pre-conference play, or God help is in the tournament, beating one of those teams is, that's massive for a program. And you don't have that if these teams don't exist. Like, you need, it's not villains, but you need these, these giants. You can't have David without Goliath. So yeah, hopefully Duke continues to be good. And yeah, it's just whatever. Like the weird cube thing from the beginning of the year is all I'm going to remember.
I don't remember any of that. See, that's maybe part of the problem, is like I really can't watch college basketball except for March Madness, because the quality is just like, I've watched too much NBA at this point. Like, I can't take a step backwards. I can't even really watch much college football, to be honest with you. And so I did not get the sense that there was a big long to do, and that there's been lots of going on and on and on about this all season long, because I don't watch a lot of college basketball, so I missed it all. And realistically, you're sweating out this Furman.
No,
I
got buzzard.
Oh, you got buzzard.
I got buzzard.
Shit, you got buzzard. Well, it's 61-61. Did they lose on the buzzer? No, they just got you.
64-63.
You got buzzard.
You got buzzard.
Oh, shit. 5 seconds, man. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, your Furman.
Thought we had it.
Thought you had it. Shit. Sorry, man.
God, they were up at like 4 or 5 in overtime. That was a fun game. I'll give it to him.
Oh man, David John Baptiste got your ass. That was he was 2 of 9 on the night from 3.
Well, I know who I'm cheering against.
DJB
in the 4-13 that's coming. Actually, they'll probably be a 14.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. I mean, I missed it to do, and in fact, that it snuck up on me, and I was like, man, I can't believe I haven't really noticed that this is Duke, K's last home game. This is crazy. So I didn't have the sensation of being sick of it by the time it got there. That's part of the problem, maybe, or at least why I had a different experience. Yeah, I think the point about him not being a good in-game coach, or not just being a very good coach for a long time, like I had a lot of text chains going back to like 2008-9 timeframe, where like after the JJ Redick era was over, where it was like, oh my God, Cade needs to hang it up. Like, this is brutal. Like, this is bad. Like, he's done. He's cooked. He's got, and then he ended up winning 2 more titles at Duke. And yes, maybe he had lots of help, lots of assistant coaches doing the hard stuff, but he was just the recruiter in chief, and that's fine. But it's not going to happen again in our lifetimes. And college basketball went from kind of a nothing to a massive megalith, entity worth billions of dollars over his tenure. And I think, he had an enormous role in a lot of that. So it should be recognized. And yeah, sorry, Andy.
No, I don't know if I care about any coaches ever. Like, they're coaches.
Oh, sure. Once we gamble, as long as we have, you are divorced from really any kind of allegiance almost entirely. Like, I'm trying
to think of even in my fandom, I really liked Denny Green when he was at Minnesota. I guess Tom Kelly and Ron Gardenhire, both of those were really hard guys to hate. Like, they really had their teams back. Flip Saunders, obviously very lovable, but I like all those guys. I don't have there's not some local coach here that is. I mean, growing up, my basketball coach and football coach, it was God, I can't think of my football coach now. He does media for the Gophers. He got a 10-win season 15 years ago. But yeah, we had Tubby for a little bit. I've never had that experience of having this amazing coach here locally that I get to cheer for. Why can't I think of my Gophers coach? That one's going to bother me.
I'm sure you'll come up with it. Yeah. Gophers, so anyway, it was a good shot of nostalgia to see all those players. Did you recognize everybody basically? Because we grew up. It
was kind of wild.
That was pretty insane. Those are you grew up watching college basketball.
Glenn Mason.
And you reckon the number of faces was just absolutely insane. It was cool that all those guys went, I thought.
What's super cool is Cleveland State fouling down 14. I'm never going to win. I think I've lost 5 straight bets. I'm never going to win a college basketball bet again.
Furman covered.
Yeah, Furman didn't cover. God bless him. But yeah, the Wright State game, Cleveland State, they're straight up just keep fouling.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, these games, Drew. I'm not sure I've ever run into a streak like this. I had a team score 3 points in the final 7 minutes of the game last night in an over that didn't get there by 2.
Oh my God!
And now I'm having a team falling down 14 with a minute to go. It is Glenn Mason. Thank you,
Glenn Mason.
It was not a 1-day hot streak, Papa. It was. It's been something. I've never had a college basketball. 2-3 week stretch like this. It's been.
What the good news is, man? A lot of games left. A lot of games left.
That one's dead.
Not tonight, but in life. In life, there's going to be a lot more games.
Yeah, when they turned off, they turn off the live total with a couple minutes left. It was sitting at 133. They're pushing 150 now.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
These kids are not quitting on me. Fucking children.
I've never been colder in my life than coming out of the All-Star break last year in the NBA. It was absolutely outrageous, and then it all turned around in the playoffs for me. So I think you lost how many in a row during Euro, and then won how many in a row?
Oh, I closed on a 7-game
7-0 down the whole stretch. You weren't even yoshing. You were legitimately just.
I yoshed the final game. I said I was going to.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that was a promise. I said that before the tournament. I will yosh the final game if I have to. I think it was the round of 16. I went 0-8, betting every single game or whatever it was. I have the spreadsheet still. It's like a big red chunk followed by a big green chunk.
I love it.
Very unnerving when that sort of stuff happens. But yeah, it's coming Rome.
It's coming Rome. And also the what do you call it? Yeah, I mean, if this cold is preceding a heater, you want to be on a heater.
We're running out of fucking games.
No, but you want to be on a heater. the last 2 weeks of March when you're
That's
in
fair.
Vegas, right? Getting paper tickets. Yeah, I mean, you want to run hot when all the eyeballs are on you, and that is going to be next week. So save up your winners, save up the W's for next week.
The worst one was like I was at the Timberwolves game the other night, Drew, a couple weeks ago, and both teams failed to score over the final 2:55. Neither team scored, I think, and it stayed under like 3 or 4 or something. And I'm sitting there with my 10-year-old daughter, who I love so much, trying not to lose my shit. But the next call against the Timberwolves got my full attention, so I let that ref have it.
I love it.
And again, it's funny. I gave Noop shit. I've been to more 76er games than him this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm just a bigger fan. Bigger NBA fan than him. Who would have thought?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. Hopefully we did the topics of the day due respect. But that was a fun grab bag. You betting the players this week? You got any tips for me?
I took Rom at 14 because I thought Bookmaker would open lower. They opened 12. I thought somebody would like him closer to 10, but I said there's no chance Bookmaker's opening him at like 17. So it's going one way. I don't think this is going up. So I was fine with it. And then I took Jason Day coming off not the tragedy angle, but the like he did have a tragedy in his life. It's more of like I double checked to make sure he was actually playing after he lost a parent because I really wanted to bet him at this course. He has really deep. I'm not a course history guy, but this is his surface for putting, and he has one here, and he does have great history on this type of course. So it's like I did have to do some research, and our guy Brett, I think Brett is the one who freaked me out this morning when he said, did he have to fly back to Australia for a funeral and then come back? I'm like, yeah, shit, I don't want to bet on that. Like, that's a lot of travel. And it did turn out his family does live over here now. So he only had to go to Ohio. So Rom and Jason Day is my whole card right now.
That's like the Norwegian kid who played tennis in South America,
God.
and then France, and then back to South America. Yeah, that was wild. Yeah, let's go J-Day. That's a story that you can pull for, man. I love it. J-Day at the Players.
That's just a fun win too.
Yep, very cool.
All right, hey, thank you.
All right, man.
Thank you, FanDuel. Thank you, BetSperts. Thank you, Producer Dan. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Coach K. I'll say it. Fuck, I don't care. Thank you. I almost started singing that Alanis Morissette song, but I won't. Dan, play us out.
Big emotional pod, man. It's getting in my feels about Coach K. You lost your Furman bet.
They covered. I'm glad whoever bet them, they covered.